My name is Derick Stevens-Jones, and I'm one of the co-creators of Queerport. And in just a few short moments, we are about to be joined by the filmmaker and star of the short film, Cam Owen. Cam is originally from Shreveport and is joining us virtually from his home in New Orleans. And we are very excited and fortunate to have him take some time out of his day to chat about Inapplicable and a little bit about what we just watched and what's to come. So stay tuned, and Cam will be joining us in just a few short seconds. Hi!
Hey!
We're here! We're here! We made it! We're both.
We are!
We just watched the short film Inapplicable, and this is quite an interesting story. I think one that's very relatable to a lot of people. I'm just going to jump right in. Like, what made you want to tell this story?
Well, what made me want to tell the story is, you don't really see a lot of films talking about, dating apps nowadays, and especially in the gay community, and how difficult it can be, especially coming from a small town like me. I'm from Minden, Louisiana. I lived some of my adult life in Shreveport back in the day, and being thrust into a thriving gay community of New Orleans, it was just kind of like a culture shock for me. And I think I felt like there weren't enough queer stories being told, and I also just wanted to tell my own story in a funny way. So that was like the inspiration behind wanting to tell this story.
So that's really what I was about to ask is, how true to this story is it?
Yeah, it's I would say it's about 80% true. Of course, I over dramatize some things for theatrical effect, but a lot of the circumstances happened. I did kind of twist some things up and make things a little bit more interesting for film, but
Sure.
a lot of it did happen, and it's very much true to my first year here in New Orleans.
And like I said earlier, this is very relatable, but not just to the LGBTQ community. This really is a story that transcends a lot of what most people face who are on internet dating apps or, on Tinder or Plenty of Fish, or, there's so many different apps out there for different communities. And I feel like that this story is pretty universal.
Right, and I was actually surprised by the response that I got from a lot of non-queer straight people. When I first wrote the script, I was like, oh God, it's going to be a gay film, and a lot of people won't relate to it. But it really did shock me that a lot of people were able to relate to it, which that makes me so happy, because you always want to make a film that is true to your heart that other people can relate to.
Sure. So you had a great cast of characters, by the way. Are those your friends, or?
Some of them are. Okay, so I've worked with Lorna Street Dobson before on some other films, and I've known her just from living in Shreveport with her. And so other than that, Wantanya Dumpling, who is a local New Orleans drag queen, we were actually friends. We played in gay kickball together down here. And she's kind of a new to the drag world, and I just loved her attitude when she would come out in drag. She just owned, her space, and I was so inspired by that to cast her in that role. And so a funny story about Sebastian, I actually found him on a dating app.
Perfect.
I was like, this is perfect. I know his actual profile picture was
that
the one
photo
showing the phone. And I clicked on it, obviously. Who's not going to click on that photo? And he was like, I'm an actor in New Orleans. And I was like, hey, you want to audition for a film? And, he did, and he got the part.
So was this filmed during the pandemic, or?
Yeah, oh my goodness, it was filmed in June.
Okay.
So we had to take a lot of precautions, and that was right when films weren't even rolling again. So we kind of had to pick up on some of the guidelines that they were saying were going to happen. And it was difficult, but we made it work. There was a lot of Zoom calls. There was a lot of preparation that we had to do digitally when you normally would do in person. And I actually think that worked out better, because all the Zoom calls I did with the cast, we really got to get into character. And I don't know, I think it worked out for the best. But whenever we shot on the set, that's when it kind of got a little tricky. Everyone had to wear masks and, keep social distancing as much as we could, without,
Right.
compromising the film. But it was a challenge, but we made it through. It was a 3-day shoot in the middle of June down here in New Orleans.
Very cool. How long have you been a filmmaker?
A filmmaker, I would say. I produced my first short 5 years ago with Tamsin with the American Virgin.
Hmm.
And then we got into Film Prize with that one, and it was a big success. So we came back with American Pride, and that one is also a gay story. And I,
Right.
I think that was the first American Virgin was the first Film Prize film that showed two men kissing. And so that,
Which is huge. That's
that's
huge.
huge. I know. And I was just like, oh, are you fucking, oh, can I
You're
cuss on
good.
it?
You can totally say fuck. Like
Are
we're
you
past,
kidding me?
drop the
That's
mic with it.
insane.
Yeah.
So, so that made us come back with American Pride, and the film opens up with two guys kissing. And I think if I'm wrong, whatever, but I think it was the first short film in the Film Prize with the main gay character, like with the main LGBTQ story. So that was also
and when
important.
was that?
That was in 2016. Yes, it was 4 years ago.
Wow, who to think that's the first and just 4 years ago.
I
So,
know.
now I know that you've labeled Inapplicable as a pilot episode.
Yes.
This is a series that you would like to do. Why format it in a series?
Well, I actually wrote this project 3 years ago. Like after my first year here, I wanted to do my own project after producing, the American series with Tamsin, and I've always wanted to show, myself as a writer and director, and
Mhm.
so I wrote my own story, and it actually was a 6-part, like 10 page scripts for each episode. I was just like little mini stories, and it was always written that way. And so I never thought that I would be submitting it to Film Prize, because I just thought it would be, a web series that I did. But things happened, and I didn't get to do it whenever I wrote it. So when Film Prize opened up for the whole state of Louisiana, it was like, well, shit, I have to do this.
Yeah.
So and even after filming, I added a whole new episode. So now there's 7 episodes altogether. And I just really think, the first episode really just scratches the surface for what I'm trying to tell in the long run, because it is like a bigger story than just what you saw with Inapplicable, the first episode.
So will you be following more so what happens while using this app? Or is it more of other people using the app? Does it just focus on you?
Well,
What can
the
people
first
expect?
season, we've talked about how we would build after the first season, but the first season is, Ted's journey through New Orleans, and he does, it does kind of go back to Cruiser here and there, but it also deals with, other technology. And Inapplicable, the definition is just like not relevant or appropriate. So the way Ted is like trying to look for love isn't what's going to make him happy at the end of the day, and that's kind of something that I was, trying to say with it.
Sure. So this was filmed during the pandemic, like we just talked about. For you as a filmmaker and trying to wrap your head around everything emotionally that's happening in the world, not just with the pandemic, but with the Black Lives Matter movement, being a part of the queer community and facing a lot of emotional duress during this, how were you even able to put something out creatively like that?
That's a great question. It was a rough year for me, but this project was kind of like the light for me. It kind of, gave me something to focus on while I was,
Because that's a lot of work. That's a lot of
yeah,
work to do. Yeah,
it
that's a lot
is.
of
And
work to do.
I'm used to working a lot. I've usually had a job when the pandemic wasn't happening like nonstop. So my first 4 years down here, I was constantly working. And so to have like that stretch of time not working, I was driving myself insane. So I think it was, it was meant to happen this way, and it pulled me out of a funk I was in, and I was able to focus and just get it done. And I think it definitely saved my, no, I don't say saved my life, but it definitely like pulled me out of like a really dark time I was having. And I don't, there were times where I didn't think it was gonna, work at the end of the day.
Yeah.
because there were a lot of struggles that came with it. But yeah, I had to keep going because I just had to prove myself.
So, as someone who has used these apps, and I'm not talking about myself, but yes, I have. What's some type of, looking at this from a different perspective, because you've created a character around this. Like, what's some type of advice that you would give someone that is thinking about using an app like this to find
I mean,
someone?
right, for sure. And I think with the first episode is what I was trying to, it's not like a how to or what not to do. I definitely wanted to show my mistakes that I made. And so some advice I would give to people is just like know what you're looking for and like know how you're putting yourself out there and like follow signs that you might be given that if you're going for something and this guy's like, oh, mask for mask, no femmes, and you're someone who likes to put on a wig and paint your nails, and you completely ignoring that and continue to go for a guy like Sebastian, you're just going to end up getting hurt in the long run. And so I would just say, like, if I could go back to my old self, I would just say, don't just go for someone just because they're pretty. Go for someone that you actually feel like you could end up with and make you feel better about yourself and not like shit at the end of the day. Because I think in a lot of my cases, I would look past a lot of the warning signs that I would see in these profiles just because I would see a pretty man with abs. And so I think if I could go back and say that, I would slap myself a little bit.
It's dating in the queer community is very hard. It is a very
Mm-hmm.
hard thing to do.
There goes
Hello,
my cat.
cat.
Sorry. Sorry. She had to make an appearance.
Lovely. I love it. A nice cameo. Dating is very difficult. And I'm married now, and I love my partner, and I'm very fortunate. Honestly, don't know how we ended up together, considering that he's from Houghton and I'm from here, and who would have thought that would have happened. I feel like my 16-year-old self is like just laughing hysterically at that.
Right.
But being a femme, being not your typical gay person, being queer and being outside the box, it's hard to not feel like you're alone, and it's hard to feel like, especially when you're in a rural place, when you're in a southern city. Obviously New Orleans is a lot bigger, a lot more diverse than Shreveport, but giving people hope, like, and seeing that, like, wow, I went through this exact same thing. That's what Inapplicable is doing for people, I feel like. Just because, I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen that story told in film in a way that really related to me. I mean, obviously I love Buffy, so thank you for that reference.
Of course.
I'm here for it. But like, to see someone that looks, I mean, we don't look like each other, but like, to see someone look like me, that's cool.
Right. No, and that's one thing I wanted to showcase is that, you know, I'm sick of seeing the stereotypical gay person in film. I feel like you get a lot of that. Lately, things have changed, I would
We've
say.
done that.
Things are
It's like,
getting
we've done it. We're over it. We're ready for more.
right. And I just feel like the character that I'm putting out there is it's different than anything else that I've seen lately. And because I feel like we've seen the same thing, we've seen the sassy gay friend, we've seen the gay jock, and it's just like our queer community is so much more than that. And like one thing with Inapplicable, the series that I want to do is just tell more stories that aren't just about like me, just like people that I would interact with. Like there's a trans character, there is, more people with racial diversity. And I just think that's one thing that we really need in film is more of that, more diversity of not just a white gay man story. I mean, that's ironic me saying that, but I mean, I want to use my
Sure.
power, anything I can do to showcase, the other parts of it.
This ain't no Will and Grace.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for doing this with
Oh,
us.
thank you so much for having me. I just want to say I love what you guys are doing. When I lived in Shreveport, the scene was smaller and you couldn't, I don't think we had a Pride Parade or a Queerport or anything like that. And so I just commend you guys for doing this because I just think it's amazing.
Well, the reason why we exist is because of people like you. We want to have a hub. I think that that's one of the interesting things about Shreveport. When we look at it through a heteronormative lens, people love to talk about Shreveport being a hub, especially during the rise of country music and Elvis and rock and roll, and it being this place where people come to meet each other. And it's like, we've been doing that as queer people for so long in so many different ways, and we haven't been given these opportunities or places to showcase our work, our talent. We get looped in with other things, and that's hard as a queer creative, and feeling like you don't have a voice or a platform for that. It really can shut you down and make you feel like you aren't being heard. And so, like, that's at the end of the day what Queerport is all about. We want to give queer people a platform to be represented.
Right. No,
So
and I love it. And I thank you for having me and having the film.
So awesome. Well, I hope everyone has a great night, and I hope they enjoyed the show. And I will see you later, Cam.
All right. See
Bye.
you. Bye.